let's talk about how to create a budget. So depending on whether you're just starting out in business or you've been operating for a while, the beginning of the budgeting process will look different. If you have QuickBooks, I still suggest starting your budget in Excel or another spreadsheet format. You'll be adjusting the numbers and changing numbers frequently, so get the first draft down in a spreadsheet. And then once you're comfortable with the numbers, you can bring them over into QuickBooks as your budget to compare the budget that you've created to your actual numbers. But don't start in QuickBooks if you've never done a budget before. I've included a sample budget below that you can download. Feel free to use that as your starting point. There is also a lesson after this one that takes a deep dive into filling out the sample budget spreadsheet. Remember, in all examples, your financials will look different. Your expenses will be different, your accounts will be different, your income will differ, but the overall concepts are still the same, regardless of whether you're just starting out or you're a company as big as Amazon. So feel free to adjust any account names, totals, amounts you need to. The budget is yours, and you should make it fit your needs without trying to squeeze your business into a box defined by other businesses. If you're brand new in business and have no historical financial data to go off of, start by creating a list of monthly expenses that you know you'll have. Just use the next month as the place to start. Fill out your known expenses like advertising, payroll, supplies, repairs, dues and subscriptions, websites, meals and entertainment, and assign a budgeted value next to each of them. That's what you're allowed to spend that month on that expense. Once you're comfortable with the monthly budget, expand that for the next 6 to 12 months. And then fill in those one-off expenses. Do you know that you have an auto insurance payment coming up in 2 months? Do you know that you'll owe your lawyer an invoice payment in just a few months? Do you anticipate giving out bonuses to your employees around Christmas time? What other one-off expenses will you have that you need to plan for? Enter those into your budget. And now your monthly expenses shouldn't be the same for all months. Some months will be higher than others, some will be lower, but ensure that your numbers are reasonable and achievable. Don't cheat yourself here. You're only hurting yourself by fudging the numbers to ensure that you stay under budget. This is going to be used to gauge how well your business is doing and how you're able to retain cash to cover your taxes and bring home enough personally to cover your home expenses. Once you're comfortable with the budgeted expenses, work backward to figure out what you need to generate in sales, less any cost of making those sales. That's how you'll know if you're able to bring home the desired amount that you need for personal expenses. So it's important to understand your direct costs and whether or not it costs you 10%, 60%, or 80% to generate a sale, because that has huge implications on the money that's left over to cover your operating expenses and your taxes and your personal expenses. It doesn't matter if you're able to generate $1 million of sales per month if it costs you $800,000 to make those sales, and with the $200,000 that's left over, you don't even have enough to cover your overhead expenses. So you need to figure out what your gross profit, your sales minus cost of goods sold, needs to be each month in order to cover your overhead expenses in your budget. That will get you to break even. And then add any additional sales needed to cover taxes on the income earned, pay down any debt payments that the business needs to make, and bring home money personally. Everyone's budget will be very different based on the business and the industry, the location, tax bracket you're in, and the personal expenses that you need to bring home. I can tell you from my experience, that my budget when I was a bachelor right out of school was much, much lower than what it is now with a mortgage and 2 kids. So at this point in my life, I'd need to generate a lot more sales to cover my personal expenses than if I would have if I opened up a business right out of school. A budget is a very personal exercise, but it's also a very important one to ensure that you know where your money is going. Once you have a good budget created with the approximate income and expenses that the business will have in the next 6 to 12 months, now the fun part. Put that budget into QuickBooks and sit down every other week or so after you've recorded all your transactions in your books and compare what the business is doing compared to what you planned with your budget. Are you staying under budget for the month? Are you already over budget in certain categories? Why? Was your budgeted number too low and now you need to bump up that number for all the other months? Or was this month just an anomaly? There's nothing wrong with seeing an error in your original budget and adjusting the future months to reflect the cost of an item accurately. If you've been in business for a while and have at least a few months of data in QuickBooks, QuickBooks has a cool feature that allows you to create a budget based on past historical data. It will bring in data from the last few months, and then you'll tell it which expense amounts you want to be the same for the entire year, or if you want to adjust a month or two. But it cuts out a lot of the manual input. So that's why I suggest this for a company with books already created. The rest of the process is still the same, just saves time on manual input. You still should be as diligent in ensuring that you're staying under or right on budget, except for sales. Those can go over budget every month and you won't hear anyone complaining. But the exercise of recording your transactions and sitting down to compare your actual versus budgeted numbers is crucial for the success of the business and knowing where money is going. Depending on the size of your entity, you might only need 15 minutes every other week to review the budget versus actual numbers and dig into any problem areas that you see. But it can be an eye-opening experience to see the amounts you've spent right in front of your face. Maybe you didn't realize how many subscriptions you had, and maybe you could rein in those costs. Or perhaps you didn't know that you were paying a higher level of POS that cost you an extra $1,200 per month for features you don't really need. Comparing your budget to actual numbers is the cheat code that most business owners are looking for. You want to know what separates business owners who are in charge of their business from business owners who let the business run them? It's staying on top of your budget, using it to learn, affect future business decisions, and be more confident when deciding to spend money and understanding where your money is going. If you found this video helpful, we're real accountants and CPAs who work with hundreds of small business owners just like you every day. Check us out at engagecpas.com to see if we're a good fit for your business. We also have business courses available to help small business owners understand their business. They're for you to learn about your financials, your taxes, how to pick the right entity, tax myths, and everything else about your business. Learn at your own pace. Check those courses out on the Education tab on our website. You can also find us on Instagram at Engage CPAs.